Hello! Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another wonderful episode of the Saturday Morning D&D Show. If you're watching on YouTube, minor difficulties, as... well, Lucian, we were just talking that you're like, I want to rearrange all of my room.
Yes.
And I like to organize files on my computer. And so one day I was just like, why do I have this here? And I started going through and I reorganized everything. And I love it now because I know where everything is. But unfortunately, OBS is like, where's this MP3? And I'm like, that's a great question. I probably deleted a folder that I didn't think I was using, but I was. So I'll fix that later. But anyway, welcome everybody to the Saturday Morning D&D Show. My name is Jordan with a silent PH in the middle, and I'm joined always by my wonderful co-host, Sir Lucian, over at Sir Lucian Gaming. Straight up MCDM shirt style and Half-Life hat style.
Half-Life. Nobody always notices that.
Because it's Steam, right? Steam sales going on. You got to go pick up all those games. You know what's not on sale though? Dark Alliance.
It's not, but I bought it.
Well,
and I played it.
I'm just saying you're not. It's not on sale, so I can't.
No.
I don't know. It's hard. Yes, it's William's like, I can't get that theme music out of my head, so it's okay because that you don't play it because I'll just talk about it.
I'll just know it. Yeah.
And of course, Table 1 SG with his cool member logo. That's awesome to see. Thanks, guys. This will be a very hostful, which is just
no
the
guests,
two hosts.
like we've
no
had.
Guests,
seems like every episode, multiple guests, 2 guests, 50 guests, all the guests.
But we have a lot of we're not WebDM show. I'm sorry, Jancy.
Yeah, that's not us.
But anyway, so we got lots to talk about. It's kind of. I guess we've just had back-to-back guests, so we haven't really had time to talk about news. But
that's awesome. Yours says Jay Pruitt on your thing.
Oh, does it?
Yeah.
Oh, it does.
On
that's
my
funny.
overlay.
I didn't change that. Okay.
Yep, I didn't change it either. See, in Streamlabs, if you change one, it goes to all your other scenes you make.
Yeah.
And it changes it. And it wasn't supposed to do that.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. How professional we are. Totally not really at all. No professionalism here at all.
Well, and we'll get into this. Like I was in a stream last night on I'm in an Eberron game.
Oh.
And they started the countdown, and I went to Twitch and I was like, "Oh, I want to hear like the countdown or whatever." And I was listening, and you could hear us talking. And I was like, oh, and I was like, that's a big no-no. Like, oh no, they can hear us talking. And the guy was just like, of course they can. Like, nobody's really like doing anything during a countdown. Like, what? And I was like, oh, I guess you're right. So like they just listen to everybody banter back and forth during the countdown before the show starts. And I was like, oh, okay. I don't know why I never thought of that. And he's like, you're like the professional side of streaming, Jordan. And I was like, oh, okay.
Nice.
So, yes, didn't recognize me. Thank you. Well, okay. So yeah, we got lots of stuff to talk about. I guess we'll do this out of order. It's going to be great. Dark Alliance is out.
Yeah.
I have a frustrating relationship with buggy games at launch.
Drizzt?
So no. So I just don't buy games at launch usually because and Baldur's Gate 3 was the same way, although I heard that was pretty stable, but that's not even out. That's still like early access, like you're buying into it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So I don't even know. But anyway, this one came out and I was like, yep, it's pretty buggy from what I've heard. They'll obviously patch it. That is the current state of affairs with video games. But
yeah, that's what they
somebody
usually do.
dropped something upstairs, but that's
oh my God, somebody's breaking into your house. Run, Jordan.
But Mr. Lucian, you bought it. You're trying it out. What's going on? How's the game?
I have a different relationship because I guess I've just accepted that games that come out have bugs. And I think that's probably because I was always more of a PC gamer than a console gamer.
Uh-huh.
And maybe console games back, like if you grew up and your Nintendo games came out and your PlayStation games came out and those were the things that were your main game thing, you probably had different experience because your games weren't as buggy. But it always seems like PC games have always been that way. They always get better. They always get patched. And I just like to be playing the game, and I don't mind if a bug pops up. You also are kind of like a bug detector.
Yeah, I guess I've done that.
So that might bug you also.
The last like 12 to 13 years of my life is looking for
so that
defects,
might phase you a little bit more than others, but I like it. So the reviews have been pretty bad, right? So if you go out and you look at reviews, they get tanked, but that seems to be the thing that happens these days is to tank computer games. I kind of like it, but it wasn't the game I thought it was.
Oh, what did you think it was going to be?
Yeah. So I thought it was going to be Diablo.
Oh, yeah.
But with a Dungeons and Dragons theme, code on. So it was going to be
like Diablo 3, kind of, like top down,
fast paced, loot exploding everywhere, over the top powers that you're going to be just streaming through loads and loads of monsters, maybe some randomly generated levels that you're going through, and that kind of thing. It's more of a story-based game, and it's definitely more of a, I want to say, a Dark Souls type game where the combat's harder. The bosses, you don't just kill something in one shot, typically ever. It definitely takes a combo of shots to kill just like a little minion type creature, all the way up to when you're fighting the boss. It's a boss battle, right? You're hitting it probably, I don't know, 100 or more times before you
it's a hack and slash kind of, and then the combos really come into play when you're playing with like 4 people or 3 people. Like and you've been doing solo, I assume, or
mostly, but I did try online one, and that was when it kind of got a little bit more fun. It's definitely way more challenging as solo. I'm playing Wolfgar.
Nice.
So his hammer's pretty cool. He does have cool combos and abilities. I think it's visually pretty cool.
Yeah, visually I thought it looked great.
I do hate that it's a little bit confining. Like the levels are clearly, you can go this path or this path, and there's really it's not open worldy, right? It doesn't feel like you can go anywhere.
Yeah.
You have a couple of paths you can choose, and there is some choice you can make, but you're still kind of railroaded in a little bit. Overly maybe, because I'm so used to playing games where you can just wander anywhere. Like if you're playing like a Grand Theft Auto, or you're playing a Skyrim, or you're playing any of these games. Now they build a world, and then you go in that world and you go do things. Whereas we've gotten away from you have a level, and I built a level, and you're going to go on the level. I don't know. So I was a little bit past that, but so for me, it's a pretty good game. I don't know if I would recommend it yet, unless you liked a Dark Souls kind of game, then you might like it. If you knew you were going to have 2 or 3 people play with you, I might recommend it then. And I didn't really find bugs. I found like it wasn't the game I thought it was. I didn't run into any bugs at all.
Oh, yeah, really? I had a couple friends buy it. They got it on PlayStation, though, and they said that it's really buggy, not unplayable, but I guess buggy for them is like the controls aren't as tight, and I think there were a couple of, I don't know, but nothing like crashes, I guess. I haven't heard anything like that. But
right. Yeah, it is the timing. But just like
you're trying to focus on something, and then and you're like, why is it doing this? Like that's not where I wanted it to go. So
yeah, and I play mouse and keyboard, so I don't know if that matters. Because sometimes that maybe just the way the mapping of the controllers can be a little bit different. Yeah. I did like the opening scene, was super cool. It sounds like it's got lots of lore in it, so that's one reason you might want to pick it up on a sale. Yeah. Because it sounds like it dives into that whole area, and you learn a lot more about the 10 towns and all the other stuff that's going on.
I do think it would be fun to play with like you and Ted and like Mr. Rex or something, like the people that really enjoy this kind of lore. It would be a lot of fun to just be like, let's go through and just geek out about it. That's on my like someday, which I should be doing it like now because the game's released. But I'm just so
LB's
busy.
In chat. Welcome, LB.
Hey, LB.
She's been streaming quite a bit.
Yeah. Long time no see, actually. She's been super busy.
It feels like it's a better game if you're not playing it solo, for sure, from my point of view. It feels like, because when I got it, and I just picked up a group of strangers, and they weren't terrible, amazingly enough. I'm not going to claim that when you go to do it multiplayer you won't get terrible.
Were you the terrible one in that group?
No, I was pretty quiet. They were all like, hey, let's go this way and let's go that way.
Oh, I thought you meant like player-wise, but you're talking about just human being-wise.
Yeah, human being-wise. Yeah.
Very good.
It was interesting because you never know what you're going to get when you all of a sudden it's open mic on a game that of random randos. It was pretty good. It was fun. The loot system's a little different. So you go through and you find loot that may drop or in chests, but you don't get it right away. You don't get it until you've cleared the level. You go all the way back to your starting base, and then you go to an area there, and then it reveals what loot you got, which is kind of a mechanic I hadn't seen before. Maybe it's in other games and I wasn't used to it, but it definitely wasn't Diablo. It definitely wasn't PoE, Path of the Exile. It wasn't those types of games, but
yeah,
I don't know, been having some fun.
I was thinking of this because the way you're talking reminds me of Kingdoms of Amalur.
Yes.
And that was a fun game, which is very open world and is kind of more of what I think you wanted. Like, you're the top down, you get to run around. There's still combos and stuff, but and that one is single player only, I think. But I had a lot of fun with that one. And R.A. Salvatore wrote the world/script for that game.
Yeah, so that kind of does probably feel about right then, yeah.
That's cool.
Get it on sale. That would, if you wanted my overall recommendation, put it on one of those sale watches. It gets down to 75% off, 50% off. It's a good pickup at that point.
Yeah.
And then have some friends ready to go and tell them, hey, when this goes on sale for half off, we'll all get it and we'll play for a weekend and have a good time.
Oh yeah, see, that would be the best. Are you still playing the that D&D game, Solasta?
I have. It's made me angry so much because it is tough, and I have been playing it, but I'm stuck in a spot that I'm having trouble with my 4 wizards getting through.
Okay.
So my 4 wizard group may have stumbled into a spot they can't get past, and maybe having all 4 wizards.
Where's your fighter now, wizard?
Yeah, exactly. Spiders are coming from everywhere. They're hanging off of the sides of things that I can't get line of sight, and it just really bugs me. And,
but they're arachnid, so I guess.
Yeah, they're supposed to be there. So yeah, I do want to go back to Baldur's Gate 3 pretty soon because they've had a lot of updates recently, and I want to try the Druid out. So that's kind of on my list of things to do is get back over to Baldur's Gate and do the Druid run. So yes, I'm a huge dork, and Jordan's probably a dork too. So
yeah, I'm up there with geekdom and stuff. This slipped under my radar, but Ghosts of Saltmarsh, which is a book, an adventure that we really liked, it's getting that same board game treatment that Tomb of Annihilation got, and it's like the Legend of Drizzt. They're behind me. You can't see them in camera though. Where they're the tile placing, like DM-less exploration games. Wrath of Ashardalon was another one. They did a Castle Ravenloft. And I was just like, what? When is this happening? And it's September 30th, roughly, but it just says Ghosts of Saltmarsh, the board game. And I don't know if this is official art or not, but I don't know. I think it's going to be like the Tomb of Annihilation board game or the Temple of Elemental Evil board game.
Is it Wizards of the Coast, or
it's
have they licensed it?
WizKids. Wizards licensed it to WizKids. So, but I was buying those originally just for the minis.
Oh yeah.
Because it's not working. I wanna paste that in. There we go. I was buying them originally for the minis because they are the same minis that you get, but you get a complete set. They're just not painted. Mm-hmm. And so that was like how I was getting minis earlier. And I think I've played the Legend of Drizzt game like twice, and they're fun, but really I was just buying them because I was like, they're minis and they're cool and whatever. And then I won the Drizzt game in a contest, and then I bought the Castle Ravenloft one, and I don't think I bought any more after that. But they made a PC version of the game, of the Tomb of Annihilation game, and it's the exact same board game, but they made a PC version of it on Steam, which I also have not played, but I think I own, that's the pile of shame Steam library that they talk about.
Yeah. We always buy games you don't play. My Steam library is huge. But I did play that one.
Legend of Dritz and Castle Ravenloft and, well, maybe not Wrath of Ashardalon, but those all have like very dungeony places to go through. Like you're in the Underdark, you're in Tomb of Annihilation, you're in the Tomb, and I was like, there wasn't really a mini line that came out for Ghosts of Saltmarsh. I think I don't because it wasn't heavy on that kind of miniature push at the time. So I wonder if they're creating new minis for it, and it would be cool to pick up some Sahagwin and various other things. But yeah, I don't know. So we'll see.
Maybe some boats.
Yeah, Braincell asked if I played all the way through, and it's like I'm playing Gloomhaven right now. And Gloomhaven feels very similar in that you're like, there's not an exploration aspect, but there's like a set up a grid and fight. And it's a DM-less system. So, but ultimately one person has to keep track of the hit points of the monsters and stuff. So there is kind of a DM even though you're playing. And then the monsters are on like an AI path that you have to determine who is it most likely to hit. And that is very similar to these, I wish they had a name.
I've been itching to play Legendary again. And I just reread the rules again because there's a single player way to play it. So I've been thinking about trying to set up like a camera for the board, a camera for me, and then maybe like a camera that goes on the hand or like the hand of cards you have or something. And then maybe do like a stream of playing it. I think it'd be pretty fun. Or it'd be kind of cool to do a board game over a Zoom somehow where there's cameras are showing all of the relevant pieces.
Yeah.
And, the person who's there is moving things the way people want them to move it, but you're still playing a board game even if you're through Zoom and you don't necessarily have 5 people to come over to your house and hang out.
Yeah, well,
post-COVID or
Gloomhaven came out with an app that if I have the app and you have the app on your phone, we can connect, one of us can host a server and the other one can connect to that. So then when you make changes to hit points on monsters, I see it, and when I make changes, you see it, and then on top of that, all you would need is like a camera to show the map, and then you could move yourself around. And so, because I guess a lot of people were playing over the internet with
that is super cool. So, I didn't know they did that.
Yeah,
I know there's like a tabletop simulator out there too, but that'd be kind of a cool way to do it.
It was really cool at the table, just at the table. Like we had the app open, and then I had my monitor broadcasting it so that everyone at the table could see the hit points and know whose turn it was and stuff like that. It was really nice. It sped up play a lot. So.
I'm ready to play Gloomhaven, man. Let's do this.
Okay.
I'll go get the app.
Wizards of the Coast is having their D&D celebration.
Did you sign up for anything in this?
I have not, no. But I wanted to talk about it because we were talking about it in the Discord quite a bit. Yes. But if you go to dndcelebration.com/welcome, they're doing a Dungeon Master Challenge. And I'm reading it right now again, so I don't miss anything. But the window is closed for submissions, so I apologize. Ooh. Yeah. But what was happening is they had a build a trap kind of contest, and so you could build a trap for Dungeons and Dragons for the System 5e and then submit it. And it's funny because it's like the Dungeon Master Challenge, but it's really more of like the creative, what is the word? Like adventure writing challenge is really what I think it should have been.
It's more of a creative.
Yeah, not that being a Dungeon Master isn't creative, but when they're toting it like who's the best Dungeon Master, I'm like, well, that's a really weird thing because is it the one who knows all the rules? Is it the one who takes a pre-written adventure and makes it wonderful? Is it somebody who writes their own stuff? Is it somebody who designs
does
monsters?
All the voices, Jordan. We know this. It's somebody who does all the voices.
Voices are
so it's voice actors.
Yeah, voices are
best
a powerful
Dungeon
thing.
Masters.
So the catch of this is that when you submit any of the creative things you're writing for this, the subclause in the contract that you sign is that Wizards owns all of it now. And they can use it for whatever they want, and so they can submit it to, they can put it in future books, they can do all this other stuff. Like if you included a piece of art, they now own that art, they can do whatever they want. It just felt a little odd, and I forget who, but somebody in our Discord was like, that's really common in the art community, where it's like, hey, we're going to have a contest, everybody submit like a really awesome painting, And then the fine
Now
print
it's
is like,
ours.
we now own the rights to all of that because it's through a contest. And it's like, I don't know how I feel about that. So I was going to dive into this because the idea of being one, so then they're going to whittle it down to top 10 finalists, and those 10 finalists during the D&D live event in July are going to do weekly challenges, kind of like a reality TV show. And they're going to have these DM challenges. And to be one of those top 10 people, I was like, oh, that would be great for like the channel and the podcast and all this other stuff, like get your name out there. But everything you create, they own. And the prize is a trophy and $2,000 worth of merchandise, not even money. So you just get merchandise probably to books you already own. Because let's be honest, you're into Dungeons and Dragons, you probably have bought
I already
all
have
of
it
these
all.
things.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't like this idea, or I feel like we're using people, so we'll see. But
Okay. So
Was
you're
not-
against this one.
I
You
don't
didn't
like
sign
it,
up
no.
for it.
And I don't, I would like it more if it had had like a $5,000 prize. And
Oh,
it was just, here's a money prize. And you also get to write an adventure for Dragon Plus. So that you have something like published, you know? And Wizards can still own all of that if that's really what they want to do. But like, I don't know. It's just like, it seems a lot of jumping through stuff to make, you're just helping them and they're not helping you. I was like, it should be give and take, you know? I don't know. So
Okay.
anyway, that's
Lots
how I
of
feel. I've got
opinions there.
opinions on things.
Lots of opinions there. Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know how I'd want to even try. Like, if you were going to say, like, I always think of I don't know what the full adage is, but the idea of don't criticize something if you don't have ideas to help fix it, you know, just in general.
Yeah.
In this case.
Yeah.
So, like, if I'm going to say, I don't like this thing, but here's some things that maybe I would like. I don't even know what I would say to say, how would you do a Dungeon Master challenge? Anyways, let's say you're at Gen Con and you just come up with the idea. Let's hold a contest, ladder match of Dungeon Masters that can sign up and they could battle to the death until there's only one. You know, what would that real competition even look like if you tried to figure out who's the best Dungeon Master? How would
Well,
you even do it?
they said that they're going to have a series of weekly challenges. And this is so subjective, so it has to be
Right.
a panel of judges. And then at that point, it's like anything where you're trying to impress the judges. But I'm thinking of, I didn't get into a lot of reality shows, but the one that I really liked was this it was on Sci-Fi Channel a long time ago, and it was about makeup, like doing horror makeup and makeup for movies and stuff.
Yeah.
And that was really cool, but it was also so subjective.
It's very
because
subjective.
Everybody, they would make these really awesome things. Like they turned one lady into a frog and they put like a little pouch on her neck that she could inflate with her mouth so that her frog neck would like expand. And it's all really cool, and then they were like makeup professionals in the industry, but it is still kind of like, well, I just liked how this one worked more. This gimmick was more attractive than the actual, like, whatever that this person put in. So
Right.
it's going to be the same thing, and who's coming up with these challenges and things like that. The cool thing, though, that I thought is the remaining three, once they're whittled down, the final challenge will be to design it looks like a whole like one shot, and then you run people through it at this D&D celebration in September. And that seemed really cool. Like, I would like to be on Twitch running a game for probably celebrities, let's be honest, because who are they going to get to play in that game? So you're going to have your Deborah Ann Wools be your player, and your
she's
Mike
my favorite
Kragulix
Dungeon
and things
Master.
like that. So, you know, like, I think that would be a lot of fun just to impress people and be like, oh, this guy's really cool. So who knows?
Yeah. So I don't know how you do a Dungeon Master contest. I probably agree too. They're probably not doing it very well here, but I don't know how you would do it. It's so crazy because it is so subjective. And like, who's been your favorite Dungeon Master? And even if I played in all those same games that you played in, my Dungeon Master favorite might have been one of the other people that ran a game for us, right? It's just
Or
like
like
you said,
when I
subjective.
play D&D, I like this, and he didn't do this, even though there's 4 other people that like the other thing that you know. So I don't know.
Yeah. Like me and you, like James, he Dungeon Master, Game Mastered games for us,
Yeah.
I like his style, but not everybody might not like his style, right? You know, because he's a little bit over the top. He's a little bit more comedy added in, a little bit more crazy. Some people might want their Dungeons and Dragons a little different than that, or their whatever game they happen to be playing. So,
and to have random players like that, that's got to be hard because you can't just be like, okay, guys, we're gonna have a real serious Ravenloft game, like no jokes,
and then pop all of a sudden references.
It's like, oh, yeah.
The first one that talks about sparkling skin, you're out.
Yeah. So there's that. I don't know. I'm gonna watch it. Obviously, I'm very curious about all of this, and I'm not trying to like say like, oh, Wizards of the Coast is the worst company. Like, it's lawyers. Lawyers do this because they want the advantage, but it feels a little like taking advantage of people, and I don't like that. So, jumping away from our beloved Wizards of the Coast, we're gonna go over to Goodman Games to talk about a little Kickstarter called The Dying Earth.
The Dying Earth. Vancian Dying Earth.
Jack Vance, the man himself, who invented Vancian magic in his basement.
Jordan has kickstarted this.
I've already kickstarted it. Yeah, it's very exciting. It's super
within
exciting.
10 minutes, I think it went.
So this is another box set, and I think it's $100 to get the box set and the adventures that they're including. So you're buying like 3 or 4 adventures and then how to play in the Dying Earth with new spells and stuff. But they're advertising a whole bunch of new, not spells, but like spell mechanics and how magic should work and stuff. And I'm just really curious because it'll be a lot like the Lankmar box set, I think, where there's lots of things you can take to apply to any of your DCC games if you're really interested in. So this one's been hyped up a lot. So
yeah, they've had a lot.
I think
it's
been like
lately.
a year. They've been like, okay, we're gonna do this, and so it's finally kickstarted, and it won't finish until like September of next year. I think is when they're scheduled. Yeah, September 2022. Sorry. Yeah. Might be earlier, but I think this is one that they're taking their time with, and they're gonna really play test and all this other stuff. They got a little like flack for their Empire of the East book, which was a fine book, but it felt kind of like, this is our little Kickstarter in between to keep content going. And now it's like, okay, now you have Dying Earth going on. So, but
got it.
And it's DCC Day. I forgot to tell everybody. So happy DCC Day. Which is their once a year in June, or I think it's always in June. They're trying to get a Saturday in June to be DCC Day to go play games. And I was really upset because you can go to Goodman Games website and check to see who registered. None of my local game stores registered. I checked this morning and my game store is registered. And I'm like, what? So I think they like ninja did it over the night because I've been pestering them and I've been like sending them messages and emails and I'm like, I'll run games for you, but they never replied. And now I'm like, what? So I'm gonna have to swing over to Phoenix Fire Games and pick up some Dungeon Crawl Classics merchandise.
Very cool. They have their Twitch site has been pretty active, so you can go over and you can check out, if you want to find out more info about the stuff they've been working on, because they've been talking about mechanics, they've been talking about art, they've been talking about direction of story and all that kinds of stuff, bringing on different people to talk about it. So if you're interested and you haven't already kickstarted, you want a little more info, I would go check out their Twitch channel.
Yeah,
they've
been doing podcasts and how to plays, and especially during DCC Day, like right now is that's probably what you're referring to. I'm sorry, Lucian, but
there's probably a lot going on.
They're doing a lot right now. Last night they had a bunch of streams on like how to play, what makes the game different, and it's been cool. So go check it out. And that's twitch.tv/Goodman Games, I think, is the one, because that's the publisher.
Yeah, I think seems to make sense.
Do you know more about this than I do? Critical Role's new mini campaign? What's going on there?
Yeah, I watched it on Thursday. Started on Thursday. So I watched the first part of it. I got to watch the second part. The characters were just getting introduced, is pretty much the part I watched, and you can tell that I think this group's going to be pretty funny and it's going to be pretty good. They're getting their sea legs under them, kind
Matt
of.
Mercer's a player, right?
Yeah. Yep. Matt's a player. He's a drunk dwarven guy. I
Awesome.
forget all the classes at the moment, but it's got a lot of cool, enough extra people to bring in a different group dynamic, but they also are funny and they're all voice actors also. They come from the voice acting industry and they've been friends for many years. And I think that's cool. And you get to see a little bit of Abria's DM style, which was fun.
People are excited for her, and I feel
Yeah.
bad. I didn't really know who she was, but like Matt was like, "Oh, I read in some interview that he's like, I was very impressed with her DMing style," and I was like, I feel like I've lived under a rock. Like I feel bad, but I'm excited that everyone's excited for her because it's kind of that could have gone really bad. Like all the fans could have been like, "What? No, Matt DMing." I'm angry, you know, but they didn't. They really latched on like, oh, this will be cool, especially in his world for her to DM.
So I'm interested to see, get past the kind of character introductions. I still got to watch the end of it and then see where it really goes in the next 7 episodes. I was a little sad that it was a mini campaign. I was hoping it was like a full on, we're going to get a real deep dive into these characters.
Well, I think
but usually an 8-session campaign, you're not going to get too far. You might get one level up, maybe.
I think a full campaign is a full campaign or a longer campaign for Critical Role is years. Yeah. And so when they say shorter, do they mean just like the summer? Like, is it
8,
gonna?
They said 8. It's
just 8 weeks?
episode
Okay.
miniseries.
8 episodes. Okay.
8 miniseries. So that's what I thought. And they're a company that's built now on being a Dungeon and Dragon play game, right? That's the whole Critical Role company at this point. Yes, they have merchandise, and yes, they've got a board game out, Ukatoa, and they've got, other stuff going on. But it feels like they have room that they could run maybe 2 games that have separate casts or different casts, and they could if they're going to be a company of, we run Dungeons and Dragons as or whatever games, we run tabletop RPGs as our mode of business now for entertainment. I feel like they could have one more in there and it'd be super fun, but I'm excited. It seemed pretty good so far. I liked it. And then I'm excited to see where it goes. I'll probably watch next Thursday too, just to catch up on it. I always like a new campaign. I don't know what it is about the beginnings of campaigns. Are always my favorite part, sticking with them is definitely tough. I'm one of those people that has a hard time sticking with them long-term, but I love the beginnings or the very end. Did you watch like the wrap-up show that they did with Critical Role where they went and talked about the whole whole season?
No. The last I saw really is they were doing the Mighty Nine versus Vox Machina.
Yeah. So it was the show after that one.
Okay.
And then they just did a big wrap-up show where the players got to ask, hey, what was this thing that we did? Or, hey, we missed this thing. Was that ever anything that it was supposed to be? When did we throw a huge wrench into your thing? Did you know Matt Colville was going to be on that as a main story arc? As a villain in Critical Role?
Really?
Him and Matt had been devising bringing in Colville as a villain that was going to be in the show for a huge arc, but the players ended up going somewhere else, took a different branch and had no idea. And eventually Matt had to tell the other Matt, hey man, it didn't work. And Colville's like, hey, that's how
D&D?
it happens sometimes.
Like...
That's D&D. They totally went a different direction, and he never got to bring that supervillain in, which I thought was really funny.
That's really cool.
So if you haven't gone back and watched that, that's the kind of stuff you can learn about a campaign. And as dungeon masters, I love understanding where things were from Matt's point of view that he had planned out versus what he made up on the fly versus how he handled different things. When they have those kinds of discussions, I watched the whole thing.
Well, that's this whole show. At least in the beginning, we were doing that because that was the whole point of Saturday Morning D&D show. Was like, I had all of this planned, and then they decided to go south, and you're like, what? So
exactly. And I want to get back to that. So it's given me the itch to get back to. I'm ready to run a game. Probably the other reason is we haven't got there yet, but I haven't got to play in 2 weeks. But we'll talk about that when we get to it. So now I'm getting an itch about one thing, and I was thinking I needed some help from our audience here, our raving fans. If they went back and they gave me their top 10 bardic inspirations that we did on this show, because we had a lot of really cool bardic inspirations. Like the one that still stands out in my head is the cliff when we talked about the world ends in the cliff. I was like, man, that's on the top of my list. That one was so fun to think about, and it was good. But I want to hear everybody else's. What were your top 10 bardic inspirations that you heard on the show that we have talked about? Because I want to pick from that, and I think that's what I want to run my next campaign is based on one of those bardic inspirations.
I liked that cliff so much. I was trying to work it into Endigar.
Yes,
because it just wasn't. I was like, no, because then how would the ocean work? And I was trying to like do this, and I'm like, Jordan, you're trying to put a square peg in a round hole. Like, if you want a cliff game, just make a cliff
build a
world.
cliff game.
Like, it doesn't have to be pushed into whatever you're doing. But no, that's kind of a good idea. Yeah, I remember really liking that one. There was, you should. Yeah. We should write. You should write something.
So I'll take Jordan's. You can put your top 10 in too, Jordan. Whatever your top 10.
We should take those now that I'm thinking about it, and we should make. I was like, we should do a Kickstarter book of like, here's 101 like inspirations or something. But not even that. Like, I don't want to make a book, but we should make a PDF that we could just put out. That would be
that'd be fun.
And then people could be like, oh, hey, here's the 2020 or the 2019 Bardic Inspiration list, and write up a little like, this is kind of how we thought it would work. Boy, I wish I had more time, but maybe we could figure out how to do that. So.
Yeah. And at some point, we probably should bring it back again. We kind of let it go for a little bit just because you're putting out idea after idea after idea after a week. And so you kind of feel like, you're stretching or you're reaching. But if you give yourself a nice break, let your brain, percolate some ideas, and then you get to come back a month or two or 6 months later, all of a sudden we could start our Bardic Inspirations up again and be pretty fun, I think. But I think we had some really good ideas in there that if we just dived into them, they'd be really cool. So.
Yeah.
So that was for the audience out there. Let me know your top 10 Bardic inspirations from previous shows. I'm going to go back and try to find those spots in our show. So it's going to be like a huge endeavor.
Well, and I think you should read through our old notes too, because we were pretty good about writing them in there. We just always went on weird tangents afterwards. But I bet if you read the headline, you'll be like, oh, yeah.
I remember that. Let me go watch that episode on YouTube. That'd be really good. Very cool. Maybe I wonder if I could clip it all together, too, at some point. It might be a bunch, but I don't know. Like you said, I wish I wasn't as busy as I am. But that was the thing. So.
No, that's really cool. I like it. I'm glad that you're getting the creative DMing itch. It's kind of fun to. And like you said, I like starting new campaigns, too, because it seems like there's just. You can go anywhere kind of a thing. And so, it's really good. I put Wizards of the Coast because I originally thought this was a Wizards of the Coast product, but WizKids has licensed Dungeons and Dragons to create a board game called Dungeon Scrawlers. And it looks really cute. It's kind of like D&D for kids, which I thought we already did with a different company or something. I don't remember. But Heroes of Undermountain, and the whole game is you're a hero and you kind of like go through predefined mazes, and you have to get artifact fragments and collect victory points by attacking bosses and stuff, various monsters. It looks really cute. You draw cards and then you play the game. It says 2 to 4 players, increasingly challenging mazes, and it should come out this October. And not that I'm looking for games to get kids into D&D, because like my nephews, they're either going to be into it or they're not, kind of at this point. Like I can just, here's full D&D, you can play this. But I really think this is fun. Like, and it harkens back to the OSR, where it was just like, why are we even here? I don't know. It's a dungeon. You explore it. Like, that's what you're supposed to do.
Open the chest, get your gold.
Yeah, you go get gold, and I like that that's what this is, because there is fun in just exploration and seeing what's behind the door, and I think we've talked about this with some people. They really didn't like Dungeon of the Mad Mage because they're like, well, there's no story to tie me to it, and there's nothing like this, and da-da-da. And I love you talking about the campaign, because you guys made your own story, which was straight up like, you're hired to go explore this, and you're having a blast, like, it's like, what is in this crazy dungeon? And that's a whole aspect of D&D that Critical Role and a lot of other podcasts don't touch on, because I don't think it makes for interesting content to watch, obviously.
Sure, yeah.
But when you're at the table, that whole like what's behind this door and the maps getting drawn out as you're playing and things like that, dungeon delving can be a lot of fun. And so I like that they have basically a little game that kind of highlights the fun of dungeon delving. So kind of exciting.
Yep, it was very cool. Again, you've shown us a bunch of board games. I'm seeing that Jordan has a board game kick going on right now. That's what I'm seeing.
And I didn't even mention this, but I bought so Kids on Brooms, Renegade Games, who made Kids on Brooms, which is the Kids on Bikes Harry Potter experience. They came out with a quick card game called Spell Duel. And so it's just, I haven't played it yet, but it came in the mail. But it's an really easy game of kind of like counters and stuff, and it's mostly luck, I think. But if you are playing Kids on Brooms and two of your players want to duel, then you can bring out this card game and they can do that. And I thought that was really fun. So it's a separate game by itself for two players, but you could also utilize it as a function within the RPG. And I was thinking about, have you seen that? Like, we need more, not mini, well, I guess it is a mini game, but like how many RPGs have those little mini games like that? That's kind of fun. Aside from like Liar's Dice or something, but I don't know.
Right. I was thinking that because there was a big, I saw a big Twitter thread go around this last week about, and it comes up quite often where the criticism against a Dungeons and Dragons is it's good at combat, but it's not really good at the other two pillars of a role-playing game. And the agreed upon pillars of a role-playing game are exploration, combat, and social interaction, right? Yeah. So those are what we all think of as being the pillars. And when you're trying to compare one game to another, you're saying what you like about another. You might say that this one has a better mechanic for handling this thing or that thing. And D&D's always been, well, they've got great combat mechanics, but they don't have anything that supports the exploration pillar or doesn't really have anything to do the social pillar. And I thought, man, it's such a catch-22 in some ways, because there's not a lot of social gaming mechanics out there. There's a few games that deal with building social mechanics, but it's not like you have 15,000 board games that all have to do with people designing social mechanics that work to pick from. It's not like exploration games are such a wide variety of mechanics that people have come up with that it should be easy to build exploration. But there is a ton of combat things that you can do and pull from other games that have to deal with combat. So it's really weird when you get that criticism, because you're like, well, how can you socialize? How do you gamify a social conversation between an NPC? So you're walking up, you're brand new to the village, there's your party, and you want to talk to the farmer. How do you gamify that? How do you give people abilities that are going to do something? And how do you have that more interactive than just one person talking to another person? Whereas combat's always your whole group against whatever's out there. So they're all involved. But that's not necessarily true when you're doing a social encounter. It might not necessarily be true when you're doing an exploration encounter, because usually you have one person that's the guide, or is the woodsy person, or is the person that's going to help you survive in this environment, but the party is just following that person. They're not doing anything to interact with that. So I thought, it is true that there's not a lot there, but what else could there be? I mean, it's not like there's Monopoly. You look at board games, they've made economics fun, so you could do that. I've seen combat made fun, you could do that. But you don't see like everybody buying, the latest, greatest exploration board game out there, or you don't see them,
I guess I'm thinking of like there are those hex crawl games or things like that. Specifically, there was like a Jurassic Park game that was kind of like that. And actually, Kids on Bikes came out with a board game. Renegade Studios made that as well. That is like a looking around town for the monster with miniatures. But I don't know. When I think of social things, I think of like Monster of the Week, where I'm just like, that was a really good game about social conversations, and you got benefits to push the story forward. And everything that you did was kind of like to help the story along. And specifically, I always go back to your character, because it was so silly that that's even like a desirable class. But it was because you're like, I'm going to roll to like stumble upon something. And then you would push the story forward with that. It was really cool.
Yeah.
But D&D has turned social stuff and exploration stuff into skill checks. Make a survival check, make a persuasion check, make an intimidation check. And that's how that game wants to deal with it. So yeah, I don't know exactly how to put it back in. Thinking about Lex's a Zag game, he did create that social structure of betting like points on a dice pool and then trying to see who actually wins the social encounter. And you as Lucian, if we were playing together, I could bet like so many with my bribe, and then you could come in and be like, by the way, I'm going to threaten you. And then that ante helps that. So it was kind of an interesting idea. I don't know if there's really an answer, though. And I don't think there's some perfect game out there that has a balance of all three. But.
And I think you can find a few mechanics that are great. And I think like Lex is definitely exploring those and putting those out there. But it's like the pond of, if I tried to do an analogy on Twitter, which was, if you're pulling great ideas out of a water, and we're going to equate it to some type of water, when you're pulling out an idea for a new combat thing, you have a whole ocean to choose from, and you're just pulling. We could do this thing with plus the swords, and we
you're not
roll these
reinventing
dice
the wheel.
and,
There's like lots of wheels.
But when you try to do social, it's like you're trying to pull out mechanics from like a small pond. You don't have a big thing to pull from, or we just haven't discovered it or gotten creative enough. And maybe that's what it is. But I was trying to think of, maybe you roll for disposition, maybe you roll for house, maybe you have abilities that help you with how a person perceives you. And maybe there's more part of a Dungeons and Dragons game that needs to be there, where you decide how people perceive the party and how that's manipulated. And even though their actions, do they get the desired results, or do they get the opposite effect? Or do, if you come in and you're just like, hey, we're big bad heroes, and you just do what we tell you, which is every party I've ran with treats NPCs that way, right? They just like, give us the info. No, I'm not going to give you the info. They pull their swords out. They just start threatening. They go right to that's the social interaction, right? They don't really view them necessarily as people, because they're in a game. They need that piece of information to go beat the bad guy, and they don't want to deal with the farmer who has that piece of information.
Yeah.
And I wonder if there's a game mechanic that could make that more fun and get the players more involved, so they're not just bullies, murder hobos.
I think you would have to gamify it. And just the way you're talking, and because I've been playing Gloomhaven, there's a reputation in Gloomhaven. So the more we do this, our reputation gets higher for this group, but lower for the other group. And so if you gamify it and put a number on it, and then when your players are like, I want to beat this guy up for the money, and it's like, okay, or the information, and it's like, okay, you might be able to get the information, but the act of doing that, your reputation's going to go down. And then a DM could look at that number and be like, okay, these NPCs straight up won't talk to you anymore because of your reputation number. And I don't know, but that's a cool thing. That's a lot more tracking. And we've always talked about D&D, or we've talked about RPGs in general, that the more we try to like codify everything, it's just like, this is so much to track now. So
yeah. So that was the big thing. I saw it going around because I saw Coville was looking at ways to make exploration useful. How would you have abilities that help you? How would you earn experience? How would you make that part of the game that it hasn't been a part of the game? And that's the same problem. I chose the social one because I felt like it was a better example to display the problem. But exploration has the same thing. It's the same kind of problem of, you can come up with a few. One is skill checks. One might be some other game. But what could you put a mini card game in that deals with exploration? Could you put a mini dice game in? Could you build a bunch of abilities where, if you look at your character class of a Dungeons and Dragons character class, you have about, on average, 16 abilities that you're going to get from level 1 to 20, right? Because a few of those are going to be ability increases to numbers. They're not really powers or things you can do. But on average, you might get anywhere from 10 to 16 new abilities that you can do things. None of those are, I can explore better or I can social better for the most part. Some of them are, but not very many. Most of them are combat. So I thought it was interesting to take a look at that.
Yeah, that's a good conversation though, because you know that drow game that I want to run? Like,
Right.
all of the drow houses, that would be cool to be like, your reputation with the houses are this. But the more you are in favor of this house, these ones are going to come after you. And so it's this weird, like, they have to decide where do you want to be in the world, you know? And,
Yeah.
I don't know. That's really cool.
LB had mentioned whatever happened to Teens in Space. She's keeping an eye out for that
yeah,
one.
we got to have a Teens in Space game. Sorry.
That's
right.
right.
That's 2019 Gen Con Jordan's problem. I'm sorry.
Yep. Yep. So she's pretty active in chat. And I agree, too. She ran a great game of the Monsters of the Week.
That was a fun
Which was
game,
fun,
yeah.
and it was mostly a social game for us. We did very little combat, really. And it was investigation,
and
it was
combat
social.
was to
it was
propel
fun.
the story. Like, and that's another thing I want to say is it was always like, I'm going to do this attack roll to like get the monster out of the way to save my good friend who's delivering Amazon boxes. So
yeah, right. Right, exactly. So I just thought it was an interesting conversation that was going on Twitter. Sometimes you get good conversations on Twitter where you really makes you think. And then, you get the other types where everybody's in an uproar and mad and all that. So I try to just focus on the ones where it makes me think about, oh yeah, I wonder how I would do that differently. Those ones that make me think really a little bit deeper,
That's cool. Well, I guess I just want to sum up. What did you do in games, Lucian? What's going on?
Well, 2 weeks ago, and we would have talked about it back then, but we had awesome guests that talked about their Kickstarter, their super successful Kickstarter, friends of the show, Red DM. We started playing, and then Australia was having some type of internet problem, and the internet dropped out about maybe half hour.
Somebody unplugged the cord that goes into the ocean to the rest of the world?
Or? Somebody kicked it. So we ended our game only having played maybe 20 or 30 minutes, maybe an hour. Then the next week, we had 2 people that couldn't make it. So we have gone 2 weeks without being able to play, and we've been playing every single week like clockwork.
Mm-hmm.
It feels crazy when you get a 2-week gap after you've been doing something every single week, right? So it feels like I'm missing it, like it's gone. We haven't been able to play. I want to get back down into the Mad Mage, man. I want to get to that next level. I want to see where we're going with this. We left off on, it was funny because we went down to 1 level, 7, that didn't give our party hardly any trouble at all. And we went back to 6 because we skipped it. We found a different way that led us down further. And 6 was kicking our butt way more than 7 was. So it was fun to see how our party's susceptible to certain things. And on 6, it had those things in spades. And on 7, it didn't. So like we had a cakewalk here, and we're having a challenge here, whereas you would have think it might be different for your group if you go through it, because whatever gives your group a challenge, you might not run into that until whatever level. It could be 5, it could be 7, it could be 6, to where you finally stumble on it. So I'm super interested to see where it goes. I've got a new story mechanic. I know none of the guys that are in the game watch our Saturday morning show. They always tease me about it. So I can give a spoiler, but I've been talking to my dungeon master about, we've been playing with the sidekick rules, playing them out. I've got an expert. That's been going really cool. We found a Kenku who was a statue. We found a way to transform the statue back into a normal person, because it wasn't just a statue. It was actually somebody who had been turned to stone. It was a Kenku. And I said, hey, wouldn't it be really cool if I offered to pay this Kenku to keep going with us down in this dungeon, and we could play around with the sidekick rules at the same time we were doing it. And our dungeon master's like, yeah, that'd be perfect. So he's been with us for Bob. B-A-U-B for Bobble. Bob is our Kenku who's going around. He's an expert, and he fires his bow and he does some cool abilities, and he's really fun to play as a sidekick, and he's become really part of the party. And I thought, okay, that's pretty cool. We've explored that. I was like, okay, now I want to try something different. And I said, I don't know if you'd let me do this or not, but we're high enough level. Could I pay enough gold that I've been saving up? Could I use all my downtime to acquire a trained pet, a monstrous kind of pet, not like a normal kind of pet, but like a monstrous kind of pet, to play around with the idea of having an animal companion kind of thing. And then maybe Bob goes off and deals with the rest of his world, and then that way I don't have too many things that he has to worry about in the game. I'll just switch one out and bring another one in. And so the thing he's kind of loosely agreed to is I'm going to spend money and time, downtime wise, trying to acquire a displacer beast as a companion.
Yeah.
Because it's something I've always wanted in a game. Always, like since I was a kid, and I saw them, the drawings of them in the old monster manuals and stuff, and I always thought this is the coolest creature ever. So we're going to work on that, and I'm going to spend a bunch of money to try to acquire a trained displacer beast. I think that's going to be cool.
Well, I'm a little sad that you're not bringing up that I ran a really cool old school Essentials game for you.
Oh, that's I didn't even remember that game.
Oh, man.
It was so terrible. Just kidding. No,
So,
it was good. It was fun.
It was fun. I bought the old school Essentials, Advanced Fantasy, and I want to review it on the Jocular Junction channel, but I figured I should probably play it. So I got Lucian and my friend Steve and my friend Katie and Lex, and we all ran through this game, and that was fun. It was a lot of fun. I really like old school Essentials, and I was watching Sly Flourish, and he openly was just like, I'm not an OSR guy. Like, I like 5th edition D&D. I like 3rd edition D&D and things like that. Mm-hmm. And he's very, his brand is very revolved around that. But he got the book, and he's like, this is the best laid out book. Like, it's so good. And he's like, and it looks cool, and you put it on your shelf. And he's like, you should buy this. And he was going on and on about it, and I was just like, no, it is really cool. So he was saying, like, in 10 years, I'll still have this, and if I want to play, like, old D&D, I can just pick this up and play it. It's kind of fun. So that was cool.
I was impressed. I know this is your segment. You're talking about the stuff you did. I was super impressed how fun the Acrobat was. Mm-hmm. An old style classic that I never probably would have played as a teenager or a kid. I never would have dawned on me that being an acrobat would be fun or cool. I wanted to be the knight with the sword. Yeah. I want to throw big magic.
But you were like running and getting bonuses by running and jumping and stuff.
Yeah,
that was really cool.
It was really cool to play it. So I was super impressed. I enjoyed it. But what did you think on your side of it, as far as what you liked, what you didn't like, how it ran, how it didn't ran? Are you ready to run more of it? Kind of give us your rundown.
I think it's ingrained in me. I just like regular initiative. I want all of us to roll initiative and then have the numbers and know who goes next, you know? Mm-hmm. The way initiative works in BX D&D and the old school Essentials is you roll like a D6, and then that's for the whole party, and we kind of decide who goes first, and then the game is divided into rounds. So you have to like declare like spells, and then you have to declare ranged attacks, and then movement and things like that. Which Lex did a really good job after our game of explaining like why that's in there. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, I thought it was just kind of like annoying, but like if I am forced to declare that I am the evil wizard casting a spell, then the rest of the group knows like, oh, he's doing magic, and that might change what they want to do in that round. And so I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then you can get out of the way, you can attack someone. So I'm trying to see if there's like a hybrid I can do for running future sessions where people could see like, you know, he's going to cast a spell, or like they're pulling back their bows. What do you want to do? But I overall I had fun. I like the idea of your race is your class. Like we had a couple people who were just straight up drow, and they had like
drows, which
they
was
had
awesome.
like drow magic and things like that, and it was a lot of fun. Yeah. We had a dwarf or a Duergar who was just a Duergar.
Two drow, a Duergar, and then me, the human acrobat.
Yeah. But we did record this, so eventually I'll put it up on the internet, and I'll let you guys all be able to watch it. It was a lot of fun. So probably when I get around to doing the review of Old School Essentials, then I will link it to that so you guys can see. But it was a lot of fun.
And it was with a couple of players. What I liked too, so we had you, a veteran dungeon master, but learning a system that you had read about, but were sort of familiar with, but still thinking about.
I think if you've played D&D, you're like, okay, but it's still pretty different.
There's some differences though that throw you. And then Lex was somebody who's kind of more of an expert on the system, if any of us were.
Yeah, he's ran a lot of BX D&D. So
I got to play, but then we had a brand new player who had never played role-playing games?
No, Katie. Yeah, so Katie's a friend of mine
Katie?
in real life, and she's played role-playing games. We've played a lot of stuff together. She loves Dungeon Crawl Classics. Like, I introduced that to her, and she was just like, "This is so cool!" Like, she thought the game was amazing. But I think she's playing some weird game right now that I actually am unfamiliar with. Another role-playing game, but she didn't know a lot of like drow history and things like that. And so she was like, I think it's cool that they like have magical abilities, and I was like, well, they do in 5th edition as well. But she didn't know that, so it was like, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah,
so it was fun, but to play with, and it was a game where we brought people who had never met each other before together.
Yeah.
And sometimes I like that style of a game too, because you're bringing in just new blood, you're bringing in new interactions, and as we started, it was stiff and weird, but then by the end of the night, everybody's laughing and having a good time, and it was really starting to work out. And I love seeing that transition of people who don't really know each other, but starting to become familiar, starting to have a good time, starting to enjoy the game towards the, as they work through it, and see how each person does their thing. And, and it just, you start to build that story. And by the end of it, we had an incredibly cool shrinking frog fortress that we could move around.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is an interesting party that has an interesting story if it ever went any further.
Yeah.
So I just thought it was really cool.
Yeah. No, it was a lot of fun. I liked it. And then speaking of that, just like not knowing a new group of people, I'm participating in an Eberron game that is streaming on Friday nights on Twitch. And it's going to be on YouTube, but it's funny. There's a gentleman, and he goes by the handle Kugo the Mighty, and he's a fitness enthusiast on YouTube. And apparently he does a lot of like fitness and stuff, and he also does a lot of video games and things like that. He started getting into D&D, and he's one of those. He's much more successful on YouTube and a very older YouTube than I am. So I think he's like 600,000 subscribers or something. But even when I was like very small YouTuber, he was sending me messages, and he's just like, I love your content. Like, I'm learning about D&D. This is so cool. And so he finally was like, I want to run a game for you. And I was like, okay. And so he's running an Eberron game because he loves Eberron. And he's very cinematic, and it's been a lot of fun. But we have all of these people. I think 2 of them have never played D&D before, and they're just like, this is the coolest thing I've ever experienced.
I love that.
I was like,
that's
I
my
know.
favorite.
And so it's funny because I was kind of like, we ran into a couple rules questions, and they're like, judges? And I'm like, yeah. And I know the rule off the top of my head because I'm so, turning into D&D. But I'm playing a goblin ranger named Zix that we're trying to figure out what's going on with the Mornland, and it's really fun because I don't know what's going to happen, and it's been good. We had a session 0. We had a session 0 that was a lot of fun, that was recorded but not broadcast, and then last night was the first broadcast. So
I'm gonna have to go back. Is it up as a VOD then that people can go watch it?
It probably is. If not, it's gonna be on Kugo's second channel, which is called like the Mighty Dungeon, I think. But I'll put links down below, and I'll get it out to you guys so you can subscribe and watch. He did a really interesting thing though. So we made our characters in Hero Forge, and then we got 2 poses, one with a mouth closed and one open. And then he somehow set it up in Discord that when our mics are on and we're talking, the mouth opens on the character. So we have no webcams. It's all just our little characters, but when we talk, they highlight and their mouths move. And it's really clever, and I think it's a lot of fun. So
okay, I want to know how he did that.
Yeah,
that's cool.
He's doing some cool stuff.
Nice.
And then he has a map in the background on Roll20 that he moves us around and stuff so we can see where we are, but we don't have control over the characters. We're just kind of watching. And he's going for a very cinematic, story-driven game. Cool. But it's fun. It's really fun to apply all
low
of
level
this.
Right now?
We're level 3. We just started,
Level 3.
So
okay, cool.
Yeah. Anyway, it's fun times. So you should go check that out. Other than that, I've got lots of other stuff going on. I joined a game as a sea elf monk that I'll talk about more next week. And I've also been reading lots of Forbidden Lands.
Forbidden Lands is so good.
I knew it was good, but I didn't know it was that good. And I want to run a Forbidden Lands game really a lot now.
Love the box set. Get the box set if you can.
I do, yeah. I got the box set.
Good.
It's super good. I actually bought. I got this adventure book.
Oh, nice.
And it's just it's 4 little adventures in the Forbidden Lands, and so I can run anything from here. And I thought this would be a good, like, I don't know, let's go explore this just to see if people like the system.
Yeah.
But Ben Milton, Questing Beast, he wrote one of them. And so
Hey,
I was like,
Ben.
I'll go support him as well. So, yeah, we have
We should
Ben
have him on
and-
then because he probably knows how to play.
Yeah, he probably does. And Patrick Stewart, who wrote a lot of really cool OSR stuff back in the day.
Not that Patrick Stewart. But
Not
other Patrick
Jean-Luc
Stewart.
Picard, but
Yeah.
the...
It'd be cool if it
OSR.
was the same person, though.
That's our show, ladies and gentlemen.
That's our show.
Thank you so much for coming out. Thank you for hanging out with us.
Thank you for, if you're on the west coast of the United States, all the heat you're getting. I apologize.
Yes.
If you're on the east coast, you're getting all the rain. So you're getting...
There's a
one or the
mild
other.
heat wave in the New York area, too. It's really crazy.
Yeah.
But, yeah, West Coast,
Hang
you
in
guys are
there,
getting
everybody.
pummeled.
Hang in
I
there.
am with you getting pummeled. So stay indoors, stay safe, stay hydrated. Watch your pets. That's another thing. Like, don't just leave your dog out.
Don't be a bad pet owner.
Don't be a bad pet owner. And yeah, so
I hear-
we'll see you guys next week with another episode of the Saturday Morning D&D Show. I'll follow me on Twitter or Instagram, and I'll show you guys all of the DCC loot I'm going to try and get. So we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
See ya. Bye.